So I had a single mom raising 2 boys in the great city of Boulder, Colorado, making $4,000 a year. And I'm not making that number up. Yeah, this was the late 70s, early 80s, $4,000 a year. She worked part-time at a church. So things that doesn't stretch very far, even in 1980s dollars. And I was in the middle of kind of being diagnosed with some dyslexia. It was actually some neurological dysfunction in my eyes, but point blank, I couldn't read very well. I was about 8 years old. School was not my jam at the time. And I remember one summer sitting outside playing in the mud, and I have it here with me at this desk. I was playing with this exact toy. I've kept it with me my whole life. It's a 1979 Matchbox, shout out to them, Porsche Turbo. I was playing with this in the mud unsupervised because that's what we did in 1980 when your mom makes $4,000 and works a bunch of hours. And I hear this noise, and I looked up from playing with my toy, and lo and behold, call it God, the universe, the force, whatever, this exact car came driving down my street, same color, Kelly green. So I did what any unsupervised dyslexic broke kid that had a few toys would do. I chased after it. And I figured I knew where it was going because there was one person with some sort of semblance of wealth within the general running distance vicinity of where I lived. A guy named Mr. Carroll was an attorney. And I said, I bet Mr. Carroll got a Porsche. And lo and behold, there it was parked outside of his house. So I waited for about 3 hours because, again, unsupervised, had nothing better to do. I waited for Mr. Carroll to come out of the house to his Porsche so I could see it. And he didn't come out. Some guy in a suit came out. And I said, Mister, is that your car? He said, yeah, it is. You want to check it out? And he let me sit in it. And I was like, wow, what do you do? Are you a lawyer? He's like, no. I said, are you a doctor? Because as a broke kid, that's all you ever hear is you got to be a lawyer or you got to be a doctor. He's like, no. And he said, I work in sales. And I was like, huh? And I remember I kind of vaguely thinking maybe he's a drug dealer. So it's a right. Right. I did consider the fact that he might be a drug dealer, but he was dressed pretty nice. But he's like, I work for a company called Texas Instruments and I sell computers. And I said to him, I said, wow, this must be the best computers in the world. And life comes down to a few moments. The Porsche being the exact color, Kelly green 79 Turbo. And then the guy swore, he used bad language with me. And I'll use the word he said on the podcast here. You can beep it out if you feel necessary. But back then, people usually didn't use foul language with an 8-year-old. He goes, no. I said, man, that must be the best computer in the world. He goes, no, frankly, it's a piece of shit, kid. And I was like, oh. And then I felt kind of bad. Like, did he just sell Mr. Carroll a bad computer? And he said, here's the thing. The company can't sell them. He said, I'm the only person in the country that can sell them. I get $200 commission every time I sell them, which is probably about $800 in today's money. And I realized the computer's not great, but it does a few things really well. One of the things is you can do what's called calendar entries with it. In the software in the computer, you can go in and have a calendar and you can put stuff in there. He says, you know what Mr. Carroll does for a living? I said, yeah, he's a lawyer. He goes, well, do you know anything about him personally? And I said, you mean the twitching? And he goes, yeah, he's got a thing. Yeah, it's Parkinson's. All the kids in the neighborhood knew Mr. Carroll had Parkinson's. And he said, Mr. Carroll, John, he has Parkinson's and he has to take medication at 3 p.m. every day. And with his law practice way down in Westminster, he has a choice. He can take his medication and get somebody to drive him home because he's not allowed to drive after he takes his medication. Or he can leave work early. But the problem is when he has meetings at work, he writes down all the stuff from when he talks with clients. He has to get those entered so his bookkeeper can invoice them. This computer is perfect for him. And he said, the secret in life, kid, is whether you got a bad situation, a bad computer, a great situation, a great computer, figure out how you can help other people. Figure out the skills, what you have, the things that you have, and figure out, how you can take somebody's current situation and help them get to where they want to be. And he goes, you'll do just fine in life. You can have all the Porsches you want in the world. Kid, just go around, ask people that are successful, ask them questions, figure out how they do things. He goes, you're going to be way better off than I ever was. And I left that at 8 years old going, okay, wait a minute. Life's not that complicated. I would get on the bus for like 15, 20 cents. I'd go down to Boulder and I'd just start going to office buildings and companies and being like, hey, do you guys need any help? And they're like, beat it, kid. And I would hang around the parking lot, pick up trash. And I started just hanging out with people that were successful, people that were leaders of companies, all the big companies out of Boulder. I would hang around there and I started to learn that these great leaders, these great entrepreneurs, they all did things really, really similarly. And it wasn't the kind of things that anybody was talking at in school. And it wasn't the kind of things like, hey, there was nothing around, you gotta motivate people and you gotta crack. It was none of that. It was all just very specific process driven stuff. So I started to figure that out and I just started to manage my personal relationships and my business with those same process driven stuff.